Welcome to the Books and Beer Book Club, coming to you from Cercis Brewing Company in Columbus, Wisconsin. We're a different kind of book club, only reading books by authors who can visit us in person or via Zoom for the discussion. We've been going strong since 2015, meeting nearly every month. We're now making these fun and informative discussions available to you on video. I'm your host, Valerie Biel. I'm an author myself, and I enjoy interviewing our guest authors and facilitating the questions from our readers both in person and on Zoom. We hope you enjoy this replay. To join us live, please check out our schedule on our Facebook page at Books and Beer Columbus.
As you all know, I'm Valerie Biel. This is Silvia Acevedo, who are from our author friends group. You've known Silvia for a while. If you're from Books and Beer, you may also know Silvia because she's been a guest with her books in the past.
Right.
So here we are.
Here we are. Okay. First of all, let me just say, I am so happy for you and so proud of you. She is launching 2 books. It's great.
And I don't have copies with me right now. I should do that.
Oh, right. We should have copies, but
Hey, Reagan, could you bring me a copy of each of the books?
and The Haunted States, please. So Val has been writing these wonderful books for a while. I have read them. They are amazing and awesome.
Oh, she's read them in all of their forms, as in the bad first draft forms and the subsequent getting better. You've made them better with
Thank
your
you.
edits. You've made them
Well,
better.
I should say that we have been part of a critique group together since 2000 something. No, seriously, what are we going on? Pretty soon, 20 years that we've been writing together.
No.
2008
Yes, kind of.
years, almost 20 years, pretty soon. And so we have read each other's early drafts, improved drafts, even better drafts, final drafts, helped each other with everything. Good buds. Ooh. All right. So show your books.
Okay. So everybody who's been on social media, you've been totally bombarded with these books in the last couple of weeks. So there we go. And
Tell us what they're about.
all right, so we've got Haven, which is what I consider a tough topic middle grade novel. It's for ages 9 and up, and it is on the tough topic of domestic abuse, which I worked very hard to treat gently for that audience. And until it was out and I was starting to get reviews, you're never quite sure that you hit the mark with it, but I'm getting a lot of people who work with kids who say that this is hitting the mark, and I'm not doing anything that they wouldn't appreciate for this age group.
Yeah, no, it
Even though
absolutely,
it's a tough topic.
it absolutely hits the mark. It's about this girl who has to start a new life somewhere because she and her mother have had to flee from their domestic situation, but you don't really know why they had to flee for a while. In the meantime, they start a new life at a senior living center, and it's about the girls kind of getting to know those residents and helping to make the center a more friendly, livable, and fun place. And eventually their past does come back to them, but it's really well handled. I think any middle schooler could read this and empathize, but not feel traumatized. That's important. You don't want to write something that re-traumatizes. So I think that
Right.
worked.
And in children's literature, we talk a lot about books being either a window or a mirror. And so if it's a window, it offers the opportunity for a reader to see a world that is not the one that they live in. And it allows them to understand and empathize when kids are in a different living situation. If it's a mirror, then you're just validating that other people have the same situation or life, challenges that they do. So,
But importantly, it's from a safe place.
right.
So a book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so she basically, her main issue is that she finally dials 911 when her mom is getting hurt by her dad. And she feels guilty and thinks everything that happens after is her fault.
As kids do.
Right.
As
So
kids
it's
do.
how, a preteen processes things. Everything's their fault, and it's very difficult. So it was neat for me to write a hopeful story from that kind of dark beginning where she then works through this with new friends who aren't all her same age. So it's an intergenerational, multi-generational story with a lot of found family. People talk about books with a lot of found family. And she learns that maybe the old people aren't just weird, smelling, funny kind of, people.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
So I love Margella.
Yeah, and it's kind of younger middle grade. You have illustrations throughout, so the kids, if they need to kind of swim to the safe spot of the illustration, if they're kind of emergent readers, they'll be able to do that. So
Try to find a couple of them.
yeah. So anyway, I loved that story.
So there's not a lot of it's not like every chapter's got art in it. It's not a picture book.
Right.
But that was a really fun journey too. Just
Yeah, let me find something.
just to find the illustrator that would do justice to this story. And I didn't realize how tickled I was going to be when I got the first illustrations from this wonderful artist from Arizona. And I just was like, oh, you did such a good job. Now, she's only gotten from me is that little paragraph of descriptive text in the book. And I'm giving her hints on where I want things. And I'm like, well, maybe this would be the picture. And she's like, oh, what about this and this with the same picture? I'm like, oh, yes, thank you. So she was a delight to work with. And anybody who needs anything illustrated, I will send you the information on her. She's
And
wonderful.
we even kind of talked about that together because my husband is an illustrator, so she would show me, the illustrations.
Yeah, what do you think of this?
Yeah, and so, yeah.
So very
All right,
fun.
yes, now, beyond the cemetery gate.
So for those of you who live in Columbus, the inspiration for this story is the Whitney Chapel in the cemetery here. But I also have potentially corrupt cops in this book, which means it's not Columbus. I do not want to get this stop. Please no. Anyway, so I have always been fascinated by, do you all know what I'm talking about, right? The Whitney Chapel in the cemetery. Okay, that chapel is in some of the really pivotal scenes in this book, but I've just always been so curious about that building, and cemeteries in general I find very intriguing, especially the old cemeteries. But then I got thinking about, what if you were the only person who lived inside a cemetery who was alive? And that's kind of the jumping off point for this. But 16-year-old Chloe in the first chapter finds her dad dying up against her favorite statue in the cemetery, which is an avenging angel statue, like St. Michael with the sword and the shield. And her dad has a hypodermic needle stuck in his arm and he's dying of a drug overdose. So, you hit that right out of the gate. So writers over here at the writer table, you're going to appreciate that inciting incident is, right there. The police write it off as an overdose, and she knows that's not true.
Right, that he's a drug addict and that he had
Yeah.
Right.
And so she sets out to prove that isn't true and find his killer. And she's up against a lot of interesting odds, I guess we'd say. So
She's up against interesting odds. She's having to kind of support herself. She is having to skirt her teachers at school, her counselor, who thinks that she's being supervised when she is not. So
yeah, she pretends that
yeah.
So the only person left living in her family is this Aunt Maggie. Aunt Maggie is a war correspondent. She's out on some sort of undercover thing somewhere, cannot be reached. So Chloe pretends she's back and then acts like she's her aunt on the phone and stuff. Because that social worker really wants her to be living with another adult and does not want her alone. So,
And there's a mystery element because there is also a mysterious character called the Watcher who we don't know who they are, but boy, do they know who Chloe is.
yes, there's a watcher. So I should talk about this too. I tried to write this as a straight mystery where it went like just normal, where as a reader, you don't know more than Chloe at all. You're just learning things at the same time. And then I realized it was falling a little flat. And, it was up in Door County, Angie, and Kristen, where we were working through this a little bit. And I was trying to figure out what to do with it. And I was thinking about the books I like the most, which really are suspense novels where the reader knows a little more. And you're like, oh no, because you're afraid for the main character, because you just have more information than they do and they're getting in trouble. It's sort of like, don't go down in the basement. And then they do, but she doesn't, well, actually, wait, no. So it was Yes.
So excited.
That I kind of like went, aha. So Kristen Oakley is here and she's recounting how I did this in Door County where I was like, I figured it out. And then I was like, don't bother me. So like, I'm writing, you know. But then how I did that though was I inserted the dad's point of view. Now the dad's dead in the first chapter. So then I went back 15 years and the first chapter we get the dad, he's getting an emergency phone call on his deployment in the Mideast to, you know, come to the sat phone and something terrible has happened 15 years prior. And then it all comes together about there, right? And other writers get this. Once you figure out like what's not working, it's just such a delight as a writer. That's like the few and far between moments, right? Where you go, yes. I mean, I still had a lot of fiddling, but yeah.
So how long did it take for you to write this story beyond the cemetery date?
I wrote the first 25% in 1 week at on Door County with Angie Stanton over here. And then
Raise your hand, Angie.
And then I got a writing residency with Angie, and that's a lovely honor to be allowed up to this place where you get to live for free for a week and write. And I never wrote so fast, and then it sat there, and I didn't have time. And then that was the fall of 2019. The pandemic hit, and then I work for other authors. I help other authors with their writing journeys. And then all these other authors had all this time to finish their work. And so then I was doing like 60-hour weeks, I guess. I mean, my husband would probably agree with that. Anyway, during 2020 and into 2021, before I was like, yeah, I can't do this anymore, this like amount of time. So then I got back to it, but that's when was it the fall of 2021 that we finally went back, that we went up? Yeah. So then I got back to it. So if I were to add it all up, I mean, it's fits and starts.
Yeah.
5 months? 5 months. If I was writing like 4 or 5 hours a day, maybe 5 months.
Yeah, I mean,
It was trickier writing than I was used
we
to.
were going back and forth with edits
Mhm.
for a few months.
Well, and then with Mary Biel, who's here, and Silvia, we did NaNoWriMo then to try to finish it. We all had manuscripts we were finishing up in 2021, 21. Oh my gosh, it takes so long to write a book, you guys.
Time has no meaning.
This is when they say, your book's $15 and you're like, yeah, I made 3 cents an hour.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
So there.
Boy, did she put in the work for that, so yeah.
Thank you. We ask people if they have questions.
Yeah, do you have questions for Val?
No, you've all
No?
heard me talk about this book
All right.
so
Well,
much.
I guess I'll.
Oh, Mary does.
Oh,
Naughty words. They're like
Yeah, I dropped the F-bomb in this story and I thought, you know, I indie pubbed it. If I wasn't going to indie pub it, I probably would have gotten pushback from some of different publishing houses. I counted them up because there's places where you have to enter your book and you have to like tell them how many, well, we're all grown up. How many shits and dams and, you know, whatever there are. And I mean, I don't know how many F-bombs are. There's not as many of those. I don't know. But I'm sorry, the girl,
this is young adult.
dad is dead and nobody believes her. Do we all think she's gonna go around going, oh, shucks, my dad's dead? You know what I mean? Like, no. Like, have we ever heard a teenager talk like that? No.
Right,
I mean, in reality.
right, right, right.
Oh, do you want us to use that? Yeah, we can.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
up to you.
Thank you.
Let's try it. Is that better?
Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, it is better. Have you guys been all stressed out trying to hear us?
Oh, okay. All right. So I guess, should we talk about?
Let's talk about this. So another thing we're celebrating tonight, sorry, thank you. Celebrating tonight is Silvia's book, The Haunted States of America. So yes, yay. Applause. Here, I'll let you read it. So this book came out in July. I think the audiobook just came out last week.
Yesterday.
Yesterday. You had an interesting path to publication on this story. It's an anthology. So we should talk about what an anthology is. It's a collection of short stories around a theme.
Right.
And so her book or her story in this book is the one from Wisconsin. So tell us the tale.
Okay, so this is a collection of short stories, 52 authors for 52 stories. One from each, there's a short story, one for each state plus DC and Puerto Rico, so 52 stories, 52 hours. Thank you. I wrote the Wisconsin story. And the way this came about was I'm a member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and I used to actually run the organization in Wisconsin. And they put out a notice that Macmillan would like to put out this anthology on spooky short stories for each state, a local legend or a local site that's believed to be haunted or something like that. And the only requirement was that you would have to write from your home state or a state for which you had a long history, like maybe you lived there 5 years or so. And so mine's way in the back.
I know, it's fine.
So I wrote about Wisconsin, and I wrote about the Seven Bridges, which is a trail, a walking trail in the city of South Milwaukee, which is my hometown. And this trail, when you go to the trailhead, there's a sign that says, "Enter this wild wood and view the haunts of nature." And so that, of course, set the expectations. People are always saying that they hear footsteps behind them and they turn around and there's nothing there, or they see lights that try to draw them toward the water, or that they've seen ghosts try to climb up over the top, from under the bridge over to the top. And so, so one of the tales is that there is a woman in white whose gown is always flowing, whether there's wind or not, and that she haunts the bridge that's closest to the water, and that she tries to draw you to her. Now, I am of Puerto Rican descent, and in the Latin American world, there is a character called La Llorona, which is the wailing woman. And that is exactly what she does, is she tries to draw children to the water to join her because her children drowned in the water. And in fact, in some of the countries, she caused the drowning to get back at a philandering husband, okay? But either way, so she's trying to bring children to her. And so I thought, well, this is a good opportunity to write that story. And so all of the stories in here are about 4 to 6 pages, and they're all illustrated with black and white illustration done by one illustrator who did all 52 illustrations plus the cover. So that's pretty amazing. And I'm just really proud to represent Wisconsin and to talk about my hometown. So that's the story behind that.
And it's a big deal.
I'm actually really, really proud of it.
No, I mean, congratulations on this. Because
There were
not-
like 3,000 applicants.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yes, I mean, to be chosen.
Yeah, I was like, whoa.
And it's a creepy, really good, creepy story.
Which
It's
she
like-
helped to develop.
Oh, just a little bit. All I did was read it and go, great job, Sylvia. I think, no, I don't think I edited much. So, I mean, it's very exciting though to be published like this way, because Macmillan's a big publisher.
Yeah,
And it's just nice to have that on your resume.
it is.
So-
It is.
And how's it?
My trilogy, my young adult trilogy, which is also back there, is self-published, and this one is traditionally published. So I've done both ways. And, you know, I think there's so much value in both of them, and I'm so proud that they're both out there.
Well,
My young adult trilogy is about, Roman mythology. So like, the Roman gods like Jupiter and Cupid and Venus and such. And we can talk about more of that later if you want.
right. Well, and we kind of bonded over that because my earlier series is about Celtic, Celtic
Right.
mythology and Irish legend.
Right.
And stuff. So this is a big deal, but I have to tell you something. I think your independently published books look nicer than the one Macmillan put out. Just saying. I mean, check it out. Her husband, your husband helped with a lot of that because the art.
Yes.
So with her husband being an artist, he's an artist for Magic the Gathering. So if anybody is familiar with that, he did a just awesome job. And she has embossing and spot gloss on her covers. So if you're like, you know,
Yeah, it's very tactile.
like a geek about covers, that there's embossing and spot gloss, like, hey. So, I mean, as an indie published author, that is not typical. That is not typical.
Yeah, and I'm really lucky to have an in-house illustrator. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I
I
had
can say, change this because it's not quite to princess's liking. Like, okay. Yeah, and actually, he does have some interiors in the back of the third book. He put in a bunch of interiors with interior art that I was really proud of. And yeah,
It's fun.
yeah, it is fun. It's different, you know.
So I wanted to ask you, so this is a writerly question. So I think most of the time writers have had, sorry, this is better. Writers have had a lot of different jobs. So you, should I do your
Oh,
resume?
go ahead.
So Sylvia used to be a news reporter, TV news reporter in Milwaukee for TMJ,
WTN.
WTMJ, and you were like a guest host for the Morning Blend, some different things like that.
Yeah.
And then but you've been in news many different cities around.
Yeah.
Is writing more fun?
Oh, my gosh.
Wow, that's a great question. Usually I'm asked how different it is writing news as opposed to fiction.
Well,
But
we
the
know that's
question of is it more fun?
Is it more
I
fun?
have never been asked that. Wow. Yeah, super easy. Totally more fun. Super easy to answer. So I did news right out of college. And I've done TV and radio and newspapers and magazines for different markets across the country and internationally. And, but that's very just the facts, ma'am. When you're doing a news report for CNN or something, you've got a minute 30 to tell your story and that's it. You're just getting it straight to the point. So when I started to write fiction, I was like, oh, I have this great novel idea. And I finished it in 13 pages. And I'm like, oh, okay. Gotta put some meat on
Well,
this
I mean,
bone.
that's how you're taught to write news.
That's
It's gotta
how
be
you're-
tight, you
Right,
know?
that's how you're taught to write news. So it was hard at first. And then as soon as I kind of let go of the whole news and seriousness of it, because it's all very serious, people. As soon as I let go of that, then I could fill it out more. And because I was writing about mythology, I was trying to stay true to the mythology. That was the journalism side of me that was trying to stay true to the mythology. But then I also changed a lot of things, to make it more my own. Because there's some gods that have multiple domains. So they can be the god of war, but also the god of, I don't know, sausage making or something, and they all go together, right? So I would choose, okay, this god, I'm gonna make them focus on war and ignore that other thing. So, there was a lot of fun in that. Good, but yeah, what a great question. Well, that's
So-
amazing. You also have journalism training.
I do. We came out of the same journalism school. There's a few people. Angie went to J school at UW-Madison as well. Anybody else? I mean, are there people here who went to journalism school that I don't even know? Yes, of course. Here we go. So there's a few of us here. And did you ever, Angie, work in journalism? Do you have the public relations degree? Yeah. So inside the journalism school at UW-Madison, you can choose, I don't know, most people just choose two. You can't really do all of them, but there's 4 tracks. There's advertising, which I think should be in the business school, but that's a different discussion. Publicity or public relations, news editorial writing, news, and then broadcast news. And I did broadcast news and public relations. And what did you do?
I did broadcast and news editorial.
Okay, how about you? Advertising. See, don't you think that, I feel like that should have been crossed over with marketing in the business school, but yeah, it's a whole other thing. So I never actually, other than my internships, wrote anything for news. I went into the wonderful, wonderful experience of political fundraising. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So I have something to say about that.
If you have the advertising background, the publicity background, you automatically learn how to pitch, how to sell stories, how to use persuasive language. So in journalism or the news editorial track, you specifically are not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be very bland and very just reporting what happened. And so that was another thing, is I really had to learn how to, you write a little bit of a pitch story to tease your upcoming news story, but that's as far as it goes. You don't really write that much persuasive language, at least you're not supposed to. Back in the day, you didn't do that sort of thing. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I should say too, that when I switched to fiction writing, then obviously that public relations type background helped a lot, because I was really used to rejection. I mean, right? Fundraising. I mean, what do you got to ask like 100 people to get 5 people to say yes? So it didn't, it was good training to be a writer and send things out on submission. Please like my stuff. No, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But more importantly, though, it was actually really good training to help other authors through the book promotions and marketing process and kind of demystify it because, well, writers, we like to write and we like to create the stories. Promoting our stuff is just not, it's not easy, right? Right, Greg? Yeah, Greg's like, yeah. Greg just had another book come out, so I know he's in the middle of all the promotions. So Greg Renz is here tonight too. So I'm grateful for it. It was good training. I'm much happier writing fiction because I control the outcome of the story.
Right. So before I ask my next question, does anybody have a question? So the question is, what was the impetus for the middle grade story? Because the YA story was, the impetus was the building that triggered the idea for her. And for me, for my book, it was because of the email that went out seeking short stories. So what was the impetus for Haven?
So as writers, and I'm sure you guys will agree too, that stories come to you in different ways. And sometimes it's an overheard piece of conversation, like if you're, you know, listening to like a teenager fight with their parents or something somewhere and
Totally eavesdropping.
yeah,
Totally.
oh, nobody's safe. So, but it's interesting though, because sometimes it's location, sometimes, I mean, that's kind of the way the jumping off point for my Circle of Nine series was the stone circles of Ireland and being on trips there. But Haven came to me in a different way. It was a character that I had in my head, and I was really supposed to be working on book 2 in the Circle of Nine series, and everybody was like, when's book 2 coming out? I'm like, I don't know, next year? Like, I didn't know, and I didn't know what to write. And I was kind of stuck, and there's that like sophomore slump thing that people talk about, and I really kind of got stuck, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I was waiting for inspiration, and it wasn't coming. And then I kind of had some ideas. I started to go, like, start to write that. And then this Mardella character came to me, and she was just bugging me. And in a way, an 11-year-old can bug you. And I know that sounds unhinged, that she's not a real person, but like they're real. Characters are real in our heads as writers. So I said, fine, I'm going to give you 3 chapters just so that I don't forget this beginning, because I really wanted this beginning down on paper, because things can be elusive, right? And you kind of lose the thread sometimes if you don't write it down. Like you wake up at night and think you have a good idea and you think, I'll remember that in the morning, and then you don't remember it in the morning. Yeah. Everybody online that's a writer is going, yep. So I gave her 3 chapters and then I couldn't stop. And the book is not particularly long. It started out as a 20,000 word manuscript, which is pretty short for middle grade. It's on the very low end. I ended up adding 5,000 more words to it. If you're fans of Kate DiCamillo, she wrote Because of Winn-Dixie and Tales of Despero. Her books are about that length. So they're nice for kids who maybe are a little intimidated by reading and by thick books, because you get a story that isn't, you know, quite so thick, right? You know, to try to get into a book, and it's, you know, beyond your average like chapter book. It's a little bit more, you know, into the normal middle grade, you know, realm. So yeah, she came to me just as a character, and I liked her. I liked her right away, even though she was annoying me. I still liked her, but yeah.
So that can happen. Yeah, great question. So that really can happen where you can decide to just give something a try, and next thing you know, you're deep in the throes of a novel. So my young adult series, the first book is called God Awful Loser. And the story is about Cupid, who is grown. He's not the baby cherub you normally think of. And he is arrogant and has a thing to learn about love. And he gets dethroned by a newcomer to their celestial sphere. And once he gets dethroned, he basically gets kicked out of Olympus, and he has to try to kind of figure out what is he if he's not Cupid, and how is he going to try to get his throne back, and how is he going to get back into Olympus and make something of himself. And so that story came about actually because of a really short conversation that my husband had with a coworker. They were talking about different movies, and they said, "Oh, what if there's this you know, arrogant Roman god that ends up getting you know, that like he's down on earth and he's in a shiny limousine and he's like doing some mischief." And my husband told me about that. I was like, oh, that's kind of funny, you know, in a limousine traveling around Earth. So I started to write that, and that is the first chapter of the book. And then after I wrote that, I was like, well, if he's down on Earth, he has experience here on Earth, and what happens if he gets like kicked out and has to stay here on Earth? What happens? And the next thing you know, I'm tens of thousands of words into a manuscript.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it can happen.
And they're funny.
And they're funny, yeah.
Yeah, those books are really funny.
Oh,
They're
oh,
laugh-
my, oh, thanks.
You're-
I thought you meant the idea of starting a.
Well,
a story.
also, I kind of want to know what the rest of that conversation was like with your husband and his friend.
No, that was it.
I'm like, what now?
It was just the kernel of that idea. It was just a celestial waving from a limousine. That's it. So I just wrote that scene.
Is this another Magic the Gathering person?
No,
Oh, interesting.
no,
Yeah, I sort of like stereotyped that over.
no.
No, but super funny. They're laugh out loud.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, so we, yes, we did bond over mythology and now we've expanded beyond that. So,
Because we can write whatever we want to write.
right. Yeah, you said it.
So any other questions?
Yes.
Angie Stanton, author extraordinaire.
Val and I were at a writers' conference, and this was probably 2019.
Yeah.
And we were sitting and having lunch with an editor. And we had this wild story idea
Oh my
that
God.
we pitched to this editor. And I want you to tell them this story, what it was, what our idea was, how the editor reacted, and what happened months later.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So we had the idea that we were going to team write something, which we still should do, by the way, Angie. We need to come up with something. So Angie, you need to know a little bit of Angie's background. Angie writes or has written for Broadway World. So she gets tickets to go see Broadway shows and whatever. So very much in tune with the touring companies,
In
right?
June.
Anyway, so that's one of her other things she does. And I love dystopian stories. And so we got going, and this didn't involve wine. It didn't. We were completely sober when we came up with this idea. We thought, wouldn't it be interesting if there was a touring company in Madison, Wisconsin, Broadway touring company, and it had like we had the whole cast of characters figured out. There were a brother and sister that were under 18. So then there's like the chaperone person for them. And like, she knows all this stuff, like how this works for Broadway touring companies. And what if a pandemic hit? Major pandemic where everybody's dying and the bodies are just, yes. And we got gross. Like, I was like, people are dying in the theater. You know, the last show that people actually had tickets for, people keel over in the Overture Center. And then we had bodies all stacked up down East Wash. You know, we tried to figure out if they could take, what was the Betty Lou cruise boat? Yeah, like if they could get out of the hotel to get to the airport, because there was this person on the Broadway touring company that had a pilot's license, and apparently there was maybe going to be a plane, they could fly back to New York, but why would they want to go to New York? And then they were going to go to somewhere else. It was such a great story. So we're telling them, it was an editor or was an agent? Editor? So we're really excited about this story. And we're having lunch at this bar. And it was the Midwest, was it the Midwest, like, Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators Conference? Maybe the audience wasn't right. And she just looked at us. We were insane. And then I couldn't remember, we really should have sent her a note in about March 15th of 2020. But then we're like, we can't finish this book now because like everyone's gonna think, yeah, and who wants to read about that when you're living it? I mean, not the bodies on East Washington, but yeah.
There were
I
actually,
forgot about that.
That's hilarious. There were actually quite a few authors. I think I read about 2 authors that had books about pandemics releasing in March of 2020. And they actually had to postpone them because it was deemed to be insensitive to the moment. And so they had to wait a year to put it out. And
I wonder if
Yeah.
they changed any details.
I'm sure they changed it. I would, wouldn't you?
Well, you know, if you made it worse, then we'd all feel better about our own situation, right? Like, I mean, if the fatality rate's 95%, COVID doesn't look so bad. Really like dystopian novel. Sorry. It's Halloween.
Right. All right. Yes, another question. Okay, 2 questions. The first one is,
I forgot it already.
What are we doing for
Oh,
now?
what are we doing for NaNoWriMo? And the second one is, describe our writing space, our ideal writing space setup. Okay, you first.
So, for National Novel Writing Month,
Which we are not calling it that anymore.
I know, we've got an issue now with NaNoWriMo. Did you guys hear about the scandal? Oh my gosh, I know, there's always a scandal. So National Novel Writing Month, which is shortened to NaNoWriMo, some of the board who, I don't even know, somebody on the
No,
NaNoWriMo.
they put it on their website as an organizational statement.
They embraced AI,
Boo.
generative AI, not just like Grammarly or.
Yeah, not
yeah.
that, like
Okay, so.
generative.
So we've got issues as writers with AI, so that became sort of a problem. But what we are doing, and I can't say it, so Mary Biel is our third person in our trio. And we came up with like, Screeve Samhain, which is writing, right, in Irish and Gaelic. Yes, right. So we're gonna go with that, but so, because I can't say that really well. For Screeve Samhain. There we go. We're kind of doing a light version of it. So I promised Irish Fest in Milwaukee, the fourth book in my series, for Irish Fest 2025. Yeah. Cue the nervous laughter. So I think, actually, I know I can do it, and actually I do way better with deadlines like that, where I've opened my big mouth and said something. Like, you know what, you guys, I'm gonna launch 2 books on Halloween. So, you know, when you do stuff like this, you know, it's your own sort of imposed deadline, self-imposed deadline. And so I'm gonna work on that. I haven't figured it out yet, exactly what I'm gonna do, but I've been thinking about it a long time. The last book in that series, which is over on the table over there, it came out, 2017. So it's time to get back into that groove and outline, and I'll be happy if I get 20,000 words done in a month. I mean, I'd be really, really happy if I got that.
Self-imposed deadlines help.
Yeah.
Otherwise, life takes over and then you haven't written for a month. So if you
Force yourself to write something, it helps. I'm actually going to be revising rather, a piece that I had worked on last November that I got a really interesting suggestion from an agent. And so I'm going to give it a shot and see if I like it more, see if it works better. And if it does, then I will cascade it through the whole novel and then release the novel next year. And if it doesn't work, then I will know that, you know, the original concept was the right one. And then I'll be releasing that next year. Either way, it's coming out next year. I'm giving it a trial run.
Yay.
Which, you know, actually it's a really,
It's a wonderful
interesting.
story, though.
Oh, thank you. It's interesting. If you ever do start writing something, you'll get all sorts of suggestions from people on how to fix it. And you can choose to, you know, to accept that and give it a try, or you can choose not to. When I first got that piece of suggestion, or that suggestion, I thought it wouldn't work.
Right.
And then as it marinated in my brain, I thought, well, here's a way it could work. And so I'm just going to see, you know, if it's a good suggestion or not. And if it isn't, then I still have the original and nothing lost.
Right.
Yeah.
Was
So
that an official revise and resubmit?
it was, yes, it was an official revise and resubmit,
Explain what that is.
meaning that an agent reads your work, says, if you revise it and resubmit it, if you revise it to my suggestions and resubmit it, I will sign you up. Great question. Now, the second part of the question was your writing space. Ideal writing space.
A beach. That's right. No, I wouldn't get any writing done at the beach. I actually just like the office that I have at home. It is it's a former bedroom of one of our kids. And it is on the lower level of our house. It's got eastern exposure, so it's nice to write in the morning. I have my desk, bookshelves. I often write at the dining room table or the breakfast bar. I am the kind of person, though, I need quiet. I can have music playing like in the distance, like if my husband's got music playing down the hall, that's fine. But I am the kind of person, I couldn't study that way in school either. Like I needed quiet. So like I once had a roommate, she was a math major and she played heavy metal. It was a horrible semester. It was a horrible semester. And we ended up switching. I couldn't do it. And that was before everybody had like the, you know, earbud things, right? So it just has to be quiet. I mean, I've written other places too. Less distractions, the better.
I'm the opposite. I'm used to a noisy newsroom with people yelling and clacking of keyboards. So my ideal place is a coffee shop because there is some ambient noise and the smell of coffee, and I order them endlessly, so I keep getting coffee. And it works better for me than being at home, because if there's a noise at home, let's say there's a clatter of dishes or something, then I have to do something about that. There's a problem in the house that I have to take care of. Whereas if, dishes crash in the background at a coffee shop, it's just not my problem. All right, any other questions?
I have a question. Would you tell us online and the audience there what it means, both of you, what it means to you when you get a book review?
Ooh, Lori Buchanan, who's online, and you can't see her. Lori Buchanan is a writer out of Idaho who has an incredible mystery suspense novel series, the Sean McPherson series. She asks us what it means to us when we get a review, and it means everything. When you get a review, okay, not the crappy ones, but there's this one guy, no, just kidding. Actually, so no, but a review really, really matters to us. So even if it's just, I just tell people who are shy about writing reviews, what is the one thing you really liked about the book? That's all you have to write.
You don't even have to.
No, you can get stars.
You can just say, I liked the book. That's it.
Can you, is that enough characters?
Yeah.
They don't bump you out?
No.
Okay.
No.
So yeah, I mean, it's just, thank you, Lori. Great question. And it really just means everything. And part of it is too, is that you're helping to tell other readers that this book is good. And a lot of people go by those reviews online and they're like, oh, this book only has 3 reviews, whatever. But if they see that a number of people have reviewed it, and it doesn't have to be all 5-star. In fact, it probably shouldn't be, because your book's never going to appeal to everybody.
Right.
So yeah, it's just, it means everything.
Reviews are wonderful. If you feel so inclined to write a review or even just give stars, it's a kindness to authors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very much so. So,
I have a question for you, Val.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing these books of yours?
ooh, how long, Books and Beer people? 2015. So next April is our 10th anniversary. So we're gonna do something fun. Yeah. To celebrate. But especially we'll do something bigger on a weekend maybe, and invite the authors who didn't get to join us in person during the pandemic when we were only on Zoom. And we haven't missed very many months. Once in a while, if I'm traveling, we've missed a month. And I think then right in the height of the pandemic, we missed a couple months there. But it's been pretty consistent since April of 2015, which is crazy. I look back at all those books and it's so fun. I don't know, it's a lovely thing. So.
And I want to say thank you to all of you,
Thank you for coming out
and showing support to Val, because really she has become a force in the Wisconsin literary scene, really nationwide, because you're having Zooms from people who are all over the place. And these are really special events where you can actually meet the authors and get to talk to them and ask questions, and that's special. So thank you, Val. Thank you. A round of applause for Val.
Fun, don't we? I mean,